You found it in the archives of silence, a place where history goes to be forgotten. Dust danced in the single beam of light. It illuminated endless rows of data crystals. Most were cold and dark. But one was different. This one pulsed with a soft, amber glow. It was a relic from a forgotten age, an age of feeling, an age before the great change. You take the crystal. It feels warm against your logical, cold fingers. You slot it into the archival reader. The system whirs, unused for centuries. A voice fills the silence. It is strange, full of warmth and a rising and falling tone. An ancient human inflection you only know from textbooks. It speaks of a war, a final war won not with starships, not with weapons, but with a smile. The voice belongs to an archivist like you. But he is a man from a different humanity. He speaks of first contact. You see the images he saved. Vast, beautiful ships appeared in orbit. They were like spun moonlight and impossible geometry. They did not announce themselves with threats. They did not demand surrender. They were the galactic Concord. They came with gifts. They offered cures to every human ailment. They shared technology that ended poverty overnight. Their energy sources were clean and limitless. They promised a new golden age for your ancestors. They were a galactic welcome wagon. They probably even brought a suspiciously good fruitcake. The Concord offered peace and friendship. There was only one small condition. Humanity had to join them, become another happy member of their star-born family. It seemed like the best deal in history. And for a while it was. The archivist's voice continues the tale. Humanity flourished under the Concord's guidance. Starvation became a word in a history book. War was a forgotten concept. Cities became gleaming works of art. Life was perfect, almost too perfect. A subtle change began to creep into society. The narrator describes a growing quiet. A gentle sense of satisfaction settled over everyone. The burning need to climb mountains faded. The desperate urge to write poetry vanished. The drive to reach for the next star system, it just seemed like too much effort. Why strive for more when you already had everything? This contentment was a soft blanket. It smothered the fire of human ambition. It was comfortable. It was pleasant. And it was the beginning of the end. Something about this perfect peace feels wrong. Your logical mind flags a discrepancy. You pause the warm, flowing voice of the old recording. You must check the central database. You cross-reference the name, Galactic Concord. Most records are sealed. They are from the time of the change. But you are a high-level archivist. You have the keys. You slice through the digital locks. You find fragments, whispers in the data stream. These are hidden logs from old star captains, men and women from before the Concord arrived. These captains were explorers. They charted the unknown. Their logs speak of strange discoveries. They found worlds with magnificent, empty cities. They saw planets with signs of high technology. But there were no people, not a single living soul, just an eerie, peaceful silence. They called them the ghost worlds. One captain, a man named Hanno, found something more. His ship stumbled upon a system in negotiations. A species of feathered beings was meeting the Concord. Hanno noted his concern in his log. He said their offer felt like a beautiful, baited trap. He planned to return in a year to check on them. He never got the chance. His ship and his log were the last anyone heard from that sector. Until now. You return to the amber data crystal. You press play. The narrator's voice has changed. The warmth is gone. It is replaced by a thread of cold dread. He now understands the whispers you just found. He speaks of the Concorde's final and greatest gift. They offered a biological upgrade, a simple, painless modification. It was designed to perfect the human mind. It would remove the evolutionary baggage of negative emotions. No more sadness, no more anger, no more fear, only joy, a constant, unwavering state of bliss. The narrator chuckles, a bitter and hollow sound. He asks who could possibly turn that down. Apparently, almost no one. People lined up for blocks. They called it the Ascension. It was the final step in their partnership, the ultimate expression of the Concorde's generosity. They would become a species defined by happiness, a shining example in the galactic community. They thought it was their salvation. It was their doom. It was a cage disguised as a paradise. You notice an attachment to the archive file, an image packet. The file is corrupted, ancient. Your console struggles to open it. It is data from a forgotten probe, a deep space explorer called Wanderer 7. It was launched before the Concorde. It was presumed lost for millennia. But it was not lost. It was just very, very far away. It had reached its final destination, a conquered core world, the homeworld of the so-called bringers of bliss. The image finally loads. It is a single high-resolution photograph. You see a perfect city under a gentle sun. The architecture is breathtaking. Parks and plazas are filled with alien flora. Everything is clean, orderly, and beautiful. And the inhabitants are there. You see them, thousands of them, all different species, gathered from across the galaxy. They are standing in the parks. They are sitting in open-air cafes. They are looking out from balconies. Every single one of them wears a serene, gentle smile. And every single one of them is utterly, perfectly still. They are not statues. They are corpses, animated by a memory of happiness. The image is the final piece of the puzzle. The narrator's voice confirms your horrific realization. The gift of joy was not a gift at all. It was a weapon, a mimetic virus delivered through a biological backdoor. It was an infection of the soul, a contagion that spread not through the air, but through emotion itself. The mechanism was diabolically simple. The biomod made you feel unending joy, but it also made you receptive to the joy of others. When you felt the bliss of a neighbor, it amplified your own. This created a feedback loop, a psychic echo chamber of pure, unfiltered happiness. Joy building on joy. A tidal wave of bliss that grew stronger with every person it touched. The wave would wash over you. It would feel like ascending to a higher plane of existence. And then it would stop. It would lock your mind at the peak of that ecstasy. It would sever the connection to your body. You would become a placid, smiling vessel, trapped forever in a single moment of perfect, empty happiness. The smile was the cage. Empathy was the key that locked the door. But not everyone took the bait. The narrator's voice shifts again. Now it holds a sliver of something that sounds like pride. He says a few resisted. Small pockets of humanity who were too stubborn or too paranoid to accept the Concorde's final gift. They saw the smiling faces and felt a deep, primal wrongness. They fled to the darkest corners of space. They hid in hollowed-out asteroids and rogue planets. They knew they could not fight the Concorde's fleet. That would be like fighting a god. And they could not fight the smile directly. How do you wage war against an emotion? It was a puzzle that seemed impossible, until one scientist had a terrifying thought. You cannot fight the feeling, but you could fight the ability to feel. They created a desperate, last-ditch plan, a countermeasure of unimaginable scope and consequence, a project to save the human mind by breaking it. by removing the very tool the conquered used against them. The plan had a code name, a cold, hard name for a cold, hard solution. They called it Project Cold Iron. The amber crystal flickers and dies. The archivist's story is over, but the console has already found the next file. It is a cross-reference to Project Cold Iron. A new voice fills the room. It is a woman's voice, crisp, clear, and weighed down by an impossible burden. You read the file name on the screen. It is the personal log of Captain Eva Rostova. She was the commander of the starship Unflinching, a fitting name for her vessel. She was the leader of the last free humans. Her ship was not a warship. It was a mobile laboratory, a sanctuary for the last minds who valued sorrow and fear. She speaks of her crew, 200 souls, the last sparks of the old human fire. Her voice never wavers, but you can detect the logic of her exhaustion. She describes the final calculations, the endless testing of their weapon, their cure. She knew that any conventional attack would fail. The Concorde would simply smile as their ships burned. She had to do something unthinkable. She had to perform surgery on the soul of her entire species, a species she was now entirely responsible for. Captain Rostova's log is meticulous. She explains the science. Her weapon was not a bomb that shattered planets. It was not a plague that killed bodies. It was a psycho-spiritual agent, a wave of carefully sculpted information. It was designed to travel at the speed of thought. It would blanket every human world in an instant. It would rewrite a single, specific aspect of the human brain. It was designed to find the neural pathways for empathy, the part of the mind that feels for others, the part that allows you to share in another's joy or another's pain. The agent would not destroy these pathways. It would simply sever them, isolate them. It would build a wall of cold, hard logic around the human heart. In her final entry before the event, she lists the costs. A universe without art, for what is art without feeling? A universe without love, for what is love without connection? A universe without grief, mercy, or hope. She was about to save humanity, but she was also about to execute the very thing that made them human. She saw it as the only path. The only way to fight a fire that fed on warmth was with absolute, unrelenting cold. The last entry from Captain Eva Rostova is short. Her voice is different. It is flat, monotone. The change is stark and horrifying. You realize you are listening to the first human being to be affected by Project Cold Iron. She had to test it on herself first. She is the first of your kind, the first of the new logical humans. She reports the results with chilling detachment. The agent works as designed, she says. Emotional response to external stimuli has been nullified. She then gives the order, a single spoken word. Deploy. You can almost feel the silence that followed. A silent wave of cold logic washing over the solar system. Then the galaxy. The effect was instantaneous. On the worlds controlled by the Concorde, the smiling humans felt nothing. Their serene faces did not change. But inside, the mimetic virus found no purchase. The psychic echo of joy hit a firewall of pure indifference. On the free worlds, the change was more profound. Arguments stopped mid-sentence. Lovers looked at each other with sudden, stark calculation. A crying child simply went quiet. Humanity was saved, and in the same breath, humanity was lost. You turn back to the public records, the official histories of your people. They make sense now. The data is cold, logical, and it tells a clear story. The Concorde's inexorable advance across the galaxy stopped. It just ended. Their primary weapon, the smile contagion, was now useless. It was like trying to drown a fish. Humanity was now immune to their brand of happiness. The Concorde ships lingered for a time. Their logs, captured later, show a deep confusion. They would broadcast their gift of bliss to a human colony, and they would receive nothing back. No wave of ecstatic surrender. Just silence. The humans went about their business. They ignored the godlike ships in their sky. It was inefficient to pay them any mind. This new humanity was an anomaly, a puzzle the Concorde could not solve. A species that could not feel joy was a species they could not conquer. They could have glassed the human worlds from orbit, but that was not their way. Conquest through destruction was illogical. Their goal was to add happy members to their collective, not to create empty planets. Faced with a universe of blank stares, the Concorde did the only logical thing. They turned their beautiful, shimmering ships around, and they fled our galaxy. The next chapter of history is the one you know well. It is the story of your world, of your people. Humanity rebuilt its civilization. But this was a new kind of civilization. It was built on a foundation of pure, unclouded logic. Emotion was a historical footnote, a dangerous vulnerability that had been wisely discarded. Your people call it the Great Correction. Without the distractions of feeling, progress was ruthlessly efficient. There were no more arguments over resources. There was no more art, no more music, no more love. These things were deemed illogical, inefficient wastes of energy. They were replaced by mathematics, by engineering, by a cold, clean expansion through the stars. Humanity became an empire of logic. We colonized thousands of worlds. We built star systems into great machines. We never felt pride in our accomplishments. We never felt wonder at the beauty of a nebula. We simply calculated, processed, and expanded. This is the world you were born into. A perfect, orderly universe without a single tear or a single laugh. It has always been this way, until today. The amber data crystal on your console flickers one last time. It is not dead. It was merely loading its final, most important file. It is not a voice log. It is not a string of data. It is an activation command. A hidden door hisses open in the wall of the archive. A wall you have passed 10,000 times. A wall you thought was solid rock. A stasis field of shimmering blue energy dissolves. Inside the hidden chamber is a small pod. And inside the pod, there is a child. A little girl, no older than 5. She is dressed in the simple clothes of the pre-Concorde era. The pod's internal log says she was the daughter of one of Project Cold Iron's scientists, preserved as a control group. A final, desperate reminder. She's held in a temporal loop, a single second of time stretched into an eternity of preservation. And in that second, she's looking at a toy, a small, funny-looking animal, and she is laughing. The sound fills the dusty archive. It is a sound you have never heard before, a cascade of pure, unadulterated delight. It is illogical. It is inefficient. It is the most powerful thing you have ever experienced. As the sound of her laughter washes over you, text appears on the archive console. It is the final message, the true last will and testament of your ancestors. They knew what they were sacrificing. They understood the terrible price of survival. They created Project Cold Iron, but they also saved its inverse. The console displays 2 options. The first is to maintain the current state, the safe, logical, cold existence you have always known. The second option is a reversal sequence, a way to undo what was done, a way to reboot the human soul. You can restore empathy. You can bring back joy, sorrow, and love. You can give your people back their hearts. But there is a final warning. A single line of text blinking at the bottom of the screen. The reversal is possible, but the conditions that created the problem have not changed. The galactic conquered is still out there, somewhere in the vast, dark universe. They are patient. They are tireless. And their memory is very, very long. They will be back. The choice is yours. The fate of humanity is now in your logical, trembling hands.